put us on speaker view. We're here with Francis Lopez from the Los Angeles County Brewers Guild. I'm a little worried because you waved and you didn't say hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so your video, your audio kind of, you have to say like 3 or 4 words and then it comes in. So I'm going to let you just introduce yourself and then we'll move from here.
Sounds good. Hi, my name's Francis Lopez, aka Franny. I'm the executive director of the LA County Brewers Guild. I lived in Phoenix from 2005 to roughly 2010, and I miss it constantly, especially the rent and the dry heat. And I'm happy to be here with y'all today.
Thanks for joining us, Franny. We were talking a little bit in the beginning of the show about how Phoenix and Los Angeles, the city, have similar histories, but there is a sentiment here like, hey, don't California my Arizona, don't LA my Phoenix, and yet, as you are probably really aware, part of this job is understanding, urban planning and urban dynamics and walkable cities, and so we do want some great things from Los Angeles. I do want a Koreatown. I do want I want to be able to walk down the street and go, hey, this movie was filmed here. We do want that, and I think you already explained the lower rent and some of the other things that we enjoy here. We want the best of everything, both of us, right?
I would say that there are parts of Scottsdale that have out LA'd LA at this point.
For sure. Just as a casual consumer of beers that aren't Arizona, I went and got a bunch of California beers. Well, actually, Heater Allen is not. The closest thing I get was a Chapman Pils, but I did find this beer, Beverly Pils, from
Indie Brewing in downtown LA.
Yeah, so I will be having this. I didn't prepare you. I don't know if you have a beer or not. But when I start the show, I start with something random. This is My Lager Buddies, and it is a collaboration with Freakin' Brew, Throne Brewing, who now have sort of joined under the Throne Brewing umbrella, Saddle Mountain Brewing on the West Side, Richter Aleworks, Simple Machine Brewing, Front Porch, and TCB Beer Company. That's Transplant Beer Company. Those, Franny, are all on the West Side.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, so when I first moved to Arizona, I had no idea where anything was, and I was going to the downtown campus, ASU downtown campus, and I got an apartment on 67th Avenue and Thomas Road, not realizing just how far away that was from Central and Van Buren without a car. So that when I think of the West Side, I just think of like, wow, like there's so many things happening over there. And that's not even really the far west, is it? Like when you say West Side, do you mean like what was it, Glendale? No.
West Side is a slippery concept, I'll tell you, because it goes entirely from north to south, because it is spread out, and they want to say that West Side is cool, but I mean, you're talking everything from Sun City and Surprise and Mirage all the way down to Avondale and Goodyear. Like the avenues go up to 130 or something like that, 130th Avenue, and you'll like look at a lovely desert plot with nothing. But I do talk about Los Angeles when we do talk about comparing things, and Phoenix city limits are larger than Los Angeles city limits,
and it's coherent over there. You actually have a grid, well, with the exception of like Grand Avenue, right?
Yeah.
I remember thinking, oh, Central Avenue, I understand where I am. I know where East and West is because the avenues and the streets are opposite from each other. LA doesn't make any sense.
Right on. Hey, Kristen, I know you're muted and stuff. Can you get rid of the waiting room? We have Shawnee Adelson joining us from Colorado, and Camila Alarcon, who is our general counsel and lobbyist. They're going to be muted for a while, and we'll I know they want to talk about Joseph from Georgia. We want to give them an opportunity to talk about what's going on. But we're going to talk about Los Angeles, the county, which is taking a marked departure from the rest of California. And I just want to set this up as we have some things going on county by county. That is true, but largely our breweries have been able to be open. I think you can say that we're very lucky, or we've done the groundwork with the relationships to be able to communicate that our breweries are principally licensed to produce beer and they subsequently sell beer. A restaurant is principally, licensed to sell food and they subsequently sell alcohol. Bars are designed to sell alcohol, and there are people that have a bar license that are really restaurants, and there are people that have restaurant license that are really bars, and this has really sort of exposed that piece. And some of it was by design by the ownership groups or the owners, and some of it was they were pushed in that direction by the state. And so we're seeing the fallout. However, nothing compares to what you're telling me, Franny, in LA County. So give us the rundown.
All right. The fateful day was March 14th, 2020. That was when our original safer at home order went, across the entire state of California. For that, short period of time, everyone had to shut down. Nothing was happening except for off-premise sales at brewery tap rooms. So just to go and delivery only. We operated that way for a good month and a half, 2 months almost. And then we got a little bit of a reprieve when they allowed us to partner with food vendors for outdoor on-premise dining. So as long as we were outside with a food vendor selling a bona fide meal, however, the ABC decided to, dictate was a meal. They, for some reason, they called out sandwiches as not being a meal, but I've had a sandwich as a meal. And we were able to operate that way for roughly 28 days of, getting food trucks and just having people outside in a limited capacity. That seemed to keep us afloat for quite a bit of time. And we were feeling good. And all of a sudden, Los Angeles County decided to go into phase 3, which meant that bars could reopen and that we no longer had to sell a meal as part of an alcohol transaction at a brewery. That lasted for 10 days. So we had done all the work to expand our patios, pay for the extra permitting for an expanded premise of our, knocking out parking lot, some of our parking lot spaces to expand our outdoor dining. We did all this work just to be shut back down at the end of June. And since then, for the last 65 days, we have been completely in the dark and only selling for off-premise. The problem with that, though, is that Los Angeles County is the only county out of all 58 counties in California doing this. Every other county has allowed for the food vendor partnerships to continue so that the tap rooms can still see a little bit of volume during the summer, and the food vendors who usually rely on festivals, concerts, and all of these canceled things could still, operate and survive in that capacity. And so for the last couple of weeks, we've been hooting and hollering and writing to our Board of Supervisors who oversee the health department in hopes that they would consider aligning with the state order, because that's really the only thing that's keeping us from being able to operate like every other brewery in California. And so it's been a challenge because we've noticed that our supervisors just have lumped us in with all bars and all alcohol establishments. And so all they see is that our breweries that aren't brew pubs don't have kitchens. Therefore, we, are seen as like a nightlife contributor. Which is tough because I don't know about you guys, but our breweries close at 10 p.m. on a Friday night. I don't really call that nightlife necessarily. And it's just not really part of our general culture, right? I don't have to tell you guys like what our taproom culture is compared to, say, a nightclub on a Saturday night. And so it's been a lot of educating and a lot of trying to kind of convince people that we have differences, like we do have like certain culture pieces that aren't being factored in. And I think that, just the relationship between a food truck and a brewery tap room is just such a symbiotic and iconic relationship. And it's been just such an uphill climb to even get them to talk to us about it. And so that's where we're at.
Yeah. And you're saying a lot of the same things that I'm hearing across the country. And, again, so far, knock on wood, we've been able to sort of evade that. We do have the ability to sack 6 and 7 licenses. 6 licenses are full bars,
Mhm.
and 7 licenses are beer and wine. So we do have some members that had to adapt and change some things, but they had the option to close. And we actually have some breweries that have been in the to-go model since about the same time period you're talking about, and they're happy with that. And just to be clear, our position is we think that our business owners are unique and able to adapt to these conditions. They have an organization where we can literally reach out. We have about the entire state of Arizona has about the same members as LA County. And I think
Mhm.
you probably feel like you can make a call and you can get to the bottom of something and you can,
Oh yeah.
um,
I've scared everyone into just militant compliance because all I have to say is the minute one of you breaks a rule and it gets published in the news, everything I've done for the last 5 months just goes down the drain. Like that's all it takes is just one bad piece in the paper, right? And the challenging thing is that we have been very upfront with our supervisors and saying, you tell us what you need us to do, because we were abiding by the restaurant guidelines just like everybody else has been for the last however long we were able to do that for. And if you want us to do contact tracing or mandatory reservations or timed tables, like we've got small business owners, we've got brewery owners who are just like literally dying to do something.
they want to throw a science at it. They want to so
Like anything you want to do, we'll do. Just tell us what to do. And we're still not at that point where they're entertaining that idea. So
yeah, they want to throw science at it. They want to take their SOPs and bring them to the front of the house. And they're very connected to their workforce. And oftentimes, I'll talk to a business owner like, that's great. We're going to have a meeting with our employees and some of our key customers, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do. And that's the difference between what we do and some other businesses. And I know that can get lost in a state government, but it's really disheartening to hear that your county has sort of done this. And I guess it's not surprising. We often think things are copacetic at the state level, and we hear about counties doing different things. And
mhm.
um, be, it's the case that Maricopa County is the 5th largest county in the country, and so the way Maricopa County goes, the rest of the counties sort of slowly come into the same understanding. And so, but we have had during this period, we did have Pima County, which is where Tucson is. They wanted to do some extracurricular requirements that were above and beyond the governor's executive order. And though not necessarily legal, we did have to negotiate with them, and we got in late on the game, but we managed to, with the assistance of our restaurant association, figure it out. And it turned out the stuff that we negotiated down to a reasonable amount ended up becoming the state requirements for stuff.
Mhm.
um, and so, I mean, it can work, but with 50 some odd counties, it can get lost in the mix. How have your relationships been with your counties, and are your members now fired up to totally understand who their supervisors are? And
There was nothing more amazing than having to educate a bunch of grown business owners on how local government works. um, with all due respect to my membership, it does get a little bit convoluted with Los Angeles in general, because we've got the city of Los Angeles and the county, and then within the county, just over 100 different random municipalities underneath that, right? So it's been like a really big learning curve for some folks who've never ever had to deal with like no one ever really deals with the county. Like they don't have to deal with the county to get permitted. They don't deal with the county to get their licenses or anything. And so for them, it was like, what district am I in? And for us, a lot of our legislative things are in support of the CCBA's efforts. And so we're mostly dealing with, our state legislators and our federal Congress people. And so the county was always like the gap that needed to be filled for us education wise. And so one of the things that's been extra disheartening is that, while we didn't have the strongest relationships established with the county, all of my breweries have been very engaged with their local cities and their chambers of commerce. And so, during this entire Save LA Brewers campaign, we've had over 30 cities and chambers sign on and advocate for us. And it's like, okay, we have dozens of breweries advocating for themselves and sending letters and phone calls. We have over 30 chambers and cities advocating for us with emails and phone calls. And then last week we had hundreds of people writing, like clicking our one-click emails to the supervisors, and still radio silence. And so it's been, it's even been hard to explain to the consumer, we still have to go after the supervisors and try to convince them, because they're like, well, we're not hearing back from anyone. Is this how local government works? And so, during a time of COVID, when everyone's trying to reach for, leadership and some sort of path or guidance, it's just been extra heartbreaking for a lot of our breweries.
Well, at the risk of alienating any county supervisors out there, I will tell you it is the least sexy election to elect these guys, right above school board people. I guess for someone who doesn't have children, maybe it's important to people who have children. So they kind of in this weird fly under the wire thing. But I will tell you, the head of the Board of Supervisors in a county in Arizona that I might have mentioned got primaried. And I don't know if it was a result of
Wow.
what some people felt as grandstanding on this issue. Maybe something you could take back to the Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles County.
I want to. The supervisors is going for a city council seat soon, so I've been keeping my eyes peeled on that one.
Yeah, right on. And it's all politics is local, and you are all about LA County and the breweries there. And there's got to be a huge crossover between a city election too. I just wanted to shout out to Facebook Live. If you have a question, please ask it, and Kristen will at some point force me to answer those questions. I am able to look at the questions, but obviously I can't do all those things at once. People on the Zoom, if you have a question, put it in the chat, and it will I'll give you the opportunity to ask it live and in person. But to my special guests, Andrew Bauman from Uncle Bear's and on the board of directors for the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild, you can certainly bump in. Joseph from Georgia, I don't want to say newly minted. There's a couple behind you now, but your recent executive director in the state of Georgia, Shawnee Adelson, long time working with the Colorado Craft Brewers Guild, and has been the director. Ann Riley from the New York City Guild, and of course our general counsel Camila Arlekarn from Gamage and Burnham. And if you have a legal question or problem, don't ask it here, but I will tell you how to get a hold of Camila and Gamage and Burnham. They have been great supporters of our organization, and Camila has been instrumental in the last 5 years. Speaking of 5 years, Franny, you congratulations on 5 years a couple days ago. Yes.
Thank you. Yesterday, I don't know how 5 years of being a director happened. It's just you blink and the brewery babies have multiplied. I started the job literally when we started the guild. We had 9 breweries in all of Los Angeles County, like the whole county, 175 square miles, 9 breweries. 95 breweries as of today, and I'm onboarding 3 more. I don't even know where they're coming from at this point. I'm like, where do you even put them? But yeah, thank you for that. How long have you been?
I'm on my 7th year, and I started, we nominally had maybe 25 breweries, and we're at like 110, barring the 5 or 10 that I don't know what their status is, and I don't want to go there right now. But yeah, we had someone celebrate their 26th anniversary during the day of COVID shutdowns, and we had an opening on the day of Moda Sonoran Brewing in Tucson. The other brewery I was talking about was Prescott Brewing, which is probably the oldest continuously owned brewery in Arizona. Flagstaff Brewing Company, 26 years, something like that. And we've had Greenwood Brewing open during this pandemic, and I did my little give them the sign and toast, and immediately the cops came. We were outside, and they were cool and all. I mean, it was it was easy breezy, but like
Rob.
it just goes to show you the real police force is out there in force on Facebook or something. So that's in Roosevelt Row, which we're calling Row, which probably wasn't even a thing.
There's beer on Roosevelt Row now. That always just makes me like, I'm just so shocked by how much growth there's been since I've moved away. I'm so jealous. I like, if I could do it again, I'd move back down to my tiny apartment over there. Is the Lost Leaf still there?
It is, yeah.
Because that was my gateway to beer, was Tops and Tempe and the Lost Leaf, because they had all these like random bottles in the fridge, you know. And then back when you could still go to Four Peaks and wave the Indy flag, you know, that was my jam back then.
Yeah. It's come a long way, and what I will tell people is people ask, when are we going to be like Portland? I'm like, oh, well, never, because we don't have a port, and we don't have that history, but we're going to be who we are. And
said specifically, we don't have a port.
Well, so there's a whole Pan-Asian, Pacific Rim situation that we're not. I mean, we do have that, but not. We're not an export-import.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because people say, well, when are you gonna be like San Diego? Like, well, we have palm trees, but what else? What about Phoenix reminds you of San Diego? Not a lot. So, like, we're gonna have to build our own future on this, right?
I'd almost make the argument that there are more Portland-esque things about Phoenix than San Diego things.
Well, it's good to hear, because we're kind of like Chicago in this second city. Oop, I've just talked over you.
Oh, no worries. I just said there's good vegan food, and bikes.
Yeah.
Great music.
We're like. I'm gonna get your question, but I just want to say we're like Chicago, and we have the second city thing where we're not good enough, and like we need to hear people tell us what good things are here in Phoenix to appreciate them. And I'll literally, like, if I get 12 people to say like, oh, this business is the greatest thing ever, and like we're like, oh, really? And then they all go. We have this sort of thing. Andrew Bauman.
So I actually, because I read the article that you posted, Rob, in conjunction with tonight's Zoomcast, and Franny, listening to you speak, like my heart is breaking. I mean, we've all had this like heartbreak moment for the last 5 or 6 months over the people in our communities that we love, and those that are trying to get by, and those that aren't getting by. What are the next steps for you in LA County? Like, what's happening next? Is there a Board of Supervisors meeting that you're like trying to get on the agenda with? Like, how are you trying to continue to fight this fight?
So our consumer campaign, thank you, by the way, for the sentiment. The consumer campaign didn't move the needle enough for us last week. And so this week has been doubling down on all of our breweries, reaching out to the supervisors, trying to get on the agenda. We're kind of lightly stalking some of the supervisors' staffers now, reaching out to them beyond just emailing the supervisors. And this week we're actually, I'm not going to divulge too much information, but we're actually getting some of our federal Congress people involved in the mix as well. We've gotten some tremendous support from some pretty hotshot Congress folk. And so we're hoping that a combined effort of all of those things will at least get us the conversation. You see, because even all of this effort is not going to get us, is not necessarily going to equate to any change, but being able to at least get in the room or get in front of them is the next step. And it's a pretty slow and discouraging process, but we don't have anything else to lose at this point aside from having to shut all of our doors down for good. So we're just kind of going all out on that. Yeah.
Right on. Just want to encourage, before I start calling on him, I want to talk to Ann from the New York City Guild, Shawnee and Joseph. You obviously have checked in because you have something to say. And just to let everyone know, we meet on a regular basis. This is, sometimes our water cooler. And I want to share some of that interaction with you all because I think it's important to understand that we listen to each other and we try to help each other out in the way we can. But I'll go with Ann because she's unmuted herself. And what's going on in New York City?
Well, New York, like everywhere else, it changes day to day, quite literally. Like I met up with a colleague this afternoon at one of our breweries here in Brooklyn. And yeah, so the biggest issue here in New York City is New York State does have indoor dining, but New York City does not. And thus far, our mayor has yet to give us any kind of an idea as to when a plan for that is coming, other than frequently reiterating that the sidewalk seating and sidewalk cafes are through Halloween, but that's not going to keep like places afloat. Like people need to be open because by the time Halloween comes, it'll be moving into 9 months that people have been closed.
Yeah, and I can't imagine the rents are very forgivable in that.
Yeah, like that's another topic that comes up frequently. If our federal government is going to come through with any kind of grants or aids for breweries, restaurants, bars, we're our New York City Brewers Guild we're literally in the middle of planning. We are going to typically we do two fundraising events every year. One is called Blocktoberfest, and that typically has been a really casual event where it's exclusively our member breweries pouring beer, and it's really low cost of entry, and beers are ridiculously affordable. That was typically a way for just to get the word out that there's a lot of beer being brewed in New York City. So this year, what we're doing instead, and anybody who wants more information, we're going to start posting after Labor Day about it. We're going to do Oktoberfest is obviously going to be virtual, and over the course of 4 weeks, people can buy 4 different beer boxes that will be a mix of our 38 different member breweries.
Right on, right on.
That's our idea for Oktoberfest this year, since we can't be in person.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about virtual stuff in just a bit, probably.
Yeah, sorry.
No. It's a good segue, but I just wanted to make sure that people understood that we all have this in mind. So for those of you that are trying to wrap your heads around why alcohol law is the way it is, and if you don't ever want to be frustrated about that kind of thing, and you want to make sense of the world, don't ever get in the alcohol industry, because we live on a daily basis of not getting upset about things that don't make sense. But this pandemic has really exposed some things that need to be fixed, and more than ever, each of these organizations is going to need your support. So barring a straight up, hey, write us a check for $100 because you love us, we're trying to do these value propositions with some experiential things that we used to have, and some merchandise things, and please, Andrew's showing alcohol policy book that's probably on his bed nightstand that he's reading, and maybe being frustrated, and maybe going, Barney, can you believe you're doing this stuff to us? That was my Andrew Bauman impersonation. I want to switch over to Shawnee, because she's turned her camera on to hear what's going on with Colorado.
Thanks, Rob. I was eating before, so I had my camera off, but I decided I should show my face since you mentioned me. Thanks for having me and bringing me into this. I really just hopped on because, like Rob said, this is often our water cooler time, just to chat with other guilds, see what's going on. And I just wanted to hear the update on LA and sympathize with you on that. I know in Colorado, we struggled with that pretty substantially at the beginning. Right now, all breweries are able to be open in Colorado as a restaurant. And so we currently are allowed to be opened. They are not defined by license type. It's how the business is run. So if there's food available, it doesn't have to be served with the alcohol, but there has to be food available during all opening hours. And that food has to come from a retail food establishment. So that can be a neighboring restaurant or a food truck or your own kitchen. And we have indoor dining as well. So I think we have it pretty lucky here, but I totally feel for you, because when we were going through the reopening process, we were going to be excluded. And I spent countless hours doing exactly what you're doing right now, which is pulling all the strings that you possibly can, just because I was concerned that if we weren't included in that first phase, that we would never be included. And so I know how exhausting it is and how frustrating, and you sometimes just want to shake all the people that are making the decisions and say like, do you know what you're doing to these small businesses? But I just hopped on just to show some support and hear how you're doing. And
thank you.
yeah, I mean, like we tried everything, and we in Colorado, we used to have a governor that owned Wincoop, one of the oldest breweries in Colorado, and we had it so easy, and I didn't realize how easy we had it until he all of a sudden wasn't our governor. And now we're having to do a lot of education or re-education with our governor and his staff about how breweries fit into Colorado and what how important they are and what they mean to not just the economic impact, but to the community. And I think we were able to portray that. Hopefully he still likes us and isn't annoyed by us at this point. But we called Hickenlooper to be like, dude, call the current governor and like tell him he needs to change his mind. Like we were doing everything we could. So I totally feel for you, and I hope for the best for that. We did just get new guidance that we may go into the next phase of reopening. So right now we're at 50% capacity or 50 people inside, whichever is less. And that as cases go down, most of our counties will be able to be open with up to 100 to 175 people inside, or 50% capacity, whichever is less. And that if we get to a point where we're at, I forget the exact numbers, we can go up to 500 people. So that's a crazy thing. Although all bars are closed and they want to go from bars being closed to up to 500 people indoors, I don't know what the rationale is for that.
Yeah, despite our good position on this, we have constantly reiterated that we feel like it shouldn't be based on license, it should be based on behavior. And like if you run a nightclub where people will actually sit down and only go to the bathroom and that's it, if people can do this in seat in tables of 4 or 5, more power to you. I just think that our government doesn't want to be the chaperone at a high school dance, but tough. They don't want to be the food police either, but they apparently can weigh in on that if it's something that.
Yeah, and Franny, we had our bars reopened for 2 weeks and then were shut down.
10 days.
Right around the 4th of July. And so luckily we did what Rob says, made it license neutral. So there are many bars that are open, but they're serving food and people can't mingle. They have to stay seated. But there are like all the nightclubs are closed and everything.
It's a tougher argument to make. And I'm gonna fold Joseph in just a second here, and we'll ask him right off the bat with this question. When you started this job, did you ever think that you would have to have an opinion on world trade and tariffs? And also, did you think you had to have an opinion? Did you think you had to really be involved in city and county politics? Obviously, Franny, you knew that was your lot in life. But as state guild director, you're like, man, we're just here to change state laws, and then we're here to figure out the rest of it. Like what's next? Do we have to solve an HOA problem in our jobs? Joseph.
Yeah. So
HOAs? Have you had that?
What were the first 2 parts of your question?
I said, did you ever think that you would have to have an opinion on a world trade issue when you got this job? And then also, did you think that city politics and county politics were in your purview? And are we at the point where we have to fight an HOA battle?
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So yeah, simple.
Take the least ridiculous question and answer it.
So I'll be honest. You mentioned earlier, that I was the newly minted, and I think I considered myself that for a while. And there's been a couple more come online. I mean, I'll be honest. 5 months, almost 6 months now. I feel weathered and worn, starting during this time. But it's been great. It's been. I mean, we've all kind of risen to the challenge the best we can in our own situations. And just to give to echo Shawnee, I really joined to hear from Franny and to support Franny, and Rob, really to support you. And I mean, this just a kudos to you. I'm sure everybody on this call has an idea, of the support that you provide. And our water cooler, our community of guildies, as you called them, really has been a big part of helping me along over the past several months. But I would say, you're kind of at the heart of that. So appreciate you and the work that you're doing, and lifting up Franny in this way. Yeah. So we can all kind of. I'm intermittent fasting. Otherwise, I'd show you what beer I'm drinking. It's after 9 o'clock here in Georgia, so I'm well into the fast. My heart, really does go out to you, Franny, because Georgia, as I'm sure, especially early on, there was some national news coverage. We were really aggressive and early in reopening, but we did have a shutdown and we did have a reopening phase. And breweries were actually, we kind of flew under the radar, and kind of still have flown under the radar. So there was nowhere where we were specifically mentioned. And obviously breweries and brew pubs we have a very, those two licenses are very different from if you were just a bar. And, people have mentioned the difference in vibe. I mean, you can't really explain vibe to people. There's, vibe is not in a law or ordinance, but the vibe of a bar, especially if there's no restaurant, we all know what a bar is, right? And the vibe of most, if not all of our breweries is very different. They're very family friendly. They're very community oriented. Not that bars aren't community oriented, but it's a little bit different feeling there. And somebody mentioned they close at like 9 or 10 o'clock. They're not going until 2 a.m. I remember in one of our guild conversations a few months ago when we were having this conversation, somebody mentioned the concern of grinding, that was in one of our state. That was Shawnee. Okay. So this whole time I'm thinking of like trying to say something. So I said, yeah, seriously. Shawnee, I don't know if you want to remind everybody about the grinding thing, but
Our governor made a comment about how he didn't want people grinding on each other, and that was the rationale for having bars, including breweries, wineries, and distilleries, closed, because that was not a COVID-safe thing to do. And so, yes, we are not grinding here in Colorado at breweries. Just so you guys know, you're welcome to come.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure if you have the right DJ on the right night, I don't want to say you won't ever see grinding at a brewery, but I've never seen it. That's always stuck with me. So I had a little no grinding sign and kind of send it out to all the guildies. But we, one of the lessons for me, and I don't know if this is a great lesson to amplify, publicly, but sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And when we in the reopening phase, since we weren't explicitly named, and we certainly didn't think that we were bars that were in phase one excluded, we issued some guidance that said we think that we're included with restaurants, and do everything to the T, be better than the restaurants in terms of all of the guidelines and sanitation guidelines and safety and all that stuff. And that sounds good, but we had probably more than a few members that were concerned because, as you all know, it takes resources to reopen, and people are having to ramp things up and spend. So if they're going to get closed down a week later, that wasn't a good situation. So we had, I'll tell you briefly, one member, very well-meaning, I think, kind of went and took our guidance to their city, showed them the email and said, do you agree with this? Which of course the city said not only no, but hell no. So then they then turned to our State Department of Economic Development, which does not regulate breweries or really anybody, but was running point on reopening, which shows you how convoluted this process was. And they kind of said, well, they hemmed and hawed about it. So I don't know about y'all, but in advocacy, when somebody hems and haws, I'm going to go for the kill and be like, and say, if they're not clear, I'm going to advocate for our case as clear as I can. because they said, well, we really see you more as a bar than a restaurant. And I said, well, if you see us as more as a bar than a restaurant, it sounds like we're neither. Anyway, so we luckily, and again, we had a brush with that, and by a stroke of luck, they kind of just let us slide under the radar from then on. And I just told our members, I said, we have to be, more cautious and more careful with everything that we're doing. So in that regard, and we haven't faced, obviously, if folks from Texas were on the call, they'd tell you about, they reopened and then were shut down again. So they've dealt with a lot of that. We're not in the position where, and I knock on wood, our virus situation is actually, despite our reopening, a little bit of a surge, we plateaued and we're actually going down now. So never say never, but we don't have a governor that's going to be in a hurry to shut anything down, much less, breweries. So anything we can do to support you from here, other than just kind of amplifying your cause. Everybody knows somebody in California, right? So just whatever we can do to share your message.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the challenging part is, at the state level, if we just had the state guidelines for California, we'd be all right. But we're just that tiny little sliver, that little hotbed, and the case numbers just aren't to where they want it to be. And we understand that completely. Like, we're not, science deniers or anything. It's just the hard part for us in Los Angeles County is knowing that these decisions seem pretty arbitrary. They're not curbing behavior. People are driving the half hour into Orange County to go to a brewery and sit down and have a meal. If it were, a more we're all in this together situation, and that was the ask, at the state level, then we would swallow that pill, right? Like, that's just all what we have to do. But that's not the case. And I think that's what's infinitely more infuriating for me.
Yeah, I just want to amplify what Joseph has said, and everybody does know somebody in California, and there is an opportunity for us as guild leaders to really talk about other people's messages. But in general, we know how the Facebook algorithm works, and it really does take more than just sharing a message. It really takes talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. To get those people, your friends are your friends, and they're gonna do what they can, but they need to really share it, and they need to have their own discussions about it. Just because our guild has like 20,000 followers on Facebook or whatever, it doesn't mean that message really gets put out. And so the more we can do different things and the more we can help each other out, the better. And it's tough for us. We don't have the apparatus to talk to each other until recently. I mean, this Zoom thing has been a windfall. I mean, I can't imagine what this would look like, 15 years ago. I mean, first of all of us would have cauliflower ear from being on the phone, and we wouldn't know Franny from Shawnee from Joseph, because it would be all audio. We have the tools now, and I don't know how to leverage them any better, but if you're watching and you know someone in LA, I mean, like, share it on Facebook, but like literally call them, literally text them, because all they need to do is email one of the supervisors, and Franny, we'll post some links, but what's the best way to get to your message?
If you just head to labrewersguild.org/save LA Brewers, we have the whole blog post with what's going on with us. And then at the bottom, it's just, you click on these already pre-written for you emails and just hit send, and it just kind of goes out there. But that's the easiest way to get to us, is just at LA Brewers on Instagram, Twitter, and labrewersguild.org.
Yeah. So for all of these organizations, Colorado, Georgia, New York City, New York State, if you like them on Facebook, if you can go, there's a way to see every message. I know that you guys are out there wanting to get that taken care of. Please do that. And, if you see it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, write your own messages too. Just sharing sometimes doesn't get through. I mean, if you're just a casual beer fan and this is all going over your head, do what you can. But like, you guys have the opportunity to really personalize this and really make it part of what you do, and call that crazy uncle in Los Angeles. Go, hey, I know that you just like Coors Light, and occasionally you'll go to a craft beer bar, and remember that time we were there and you had a great time. Can you just do this one thing for me? I mean, it goes a long, long way. We are all familiar with talking the guild directors and talking with legislators. They want our stories. We drop names like you wouldn't even believe, and it's so important. Or contact Franny directly and say, hey, I'm a Los Angeles resident, but I happen to be stuck in North Carolina or whatever, and I know that guy. Like, what do you want me to tell him? I'll call him right now. So important. So really, really, really important. And just wanted to, if there's anyone on Facebook that has questions, or we could begin the questions here on Zoom. For my guests, I'd like to hang out for the rest of the hour, but we'll shut down Facebook Live and we can kind of break down some stuff here. If you're in Facebook, if you're on the Zoom right now, you can ask a question too. I saw Kristen momentarily. Yeah. What do you want to say, Kristen? Kristen Drews, our business development manager at the Guild. You need to unmute, even though she's my producer.
Hi. Are we talking about sponsorships?
Yeah. Well, Kristen is the one bringing in the payments.
Sure.
If you didn't know, we had to cancel Real Wild and Woody, Baja Beer Festival, our Brewers conference. I think in a couple weeks we were, Jamboree in Flagstaff. I mean, we'd be listening to music in a couple weeks out drinking beers in Flagstaff. Those are the things we had to cancel. We don't know what
Rob, you're killing me with this downer.
I know. Well, people need to know that Kristen, who's now muted and walked away because she senses that I'm going to bloviate for a while. We need to recoup some funds. We need to figure out how to engage with you all. We need to figure out what the business model is moving forward. I joke that we're a guild disguising ourselves as a tech company, and sometimes we do a good job. Kristen, who do we need to thank for this episode?
We need to thank Bar and Restaurant Insurance. They do liability insurance. We have Liquid Logistics. They are a custom draft company. We also have Next Gen Partner Solutions. They do merchant processing, and Journey Payroll, which they do payroll processing.
Right on. All very important people. And if you think, if you're not in the beer industry and you think you might need insurance, legal, if you're a craft beer bar and you want to maybe upgrade your system or degrade your system, because that's probably a thing right now, putting less taps on or maintaining the ones that have been sitting dormant for a while, we're your resource. And so thank you to Kristen for that. Again, just a couple more minutes in the show. And Franny, let's talk about what could be next. What's the Hail Mary, and what's plan B, and what's plan C, and how can we help?
To avoid crawling into a hole. I don't know. Or I guess we're trying to just keep pushing, it's hard to say what our plan B's and our plan C's are when, this current plan is all we've got right now, short of, a complete industry mutiny, which we're trying to hold off of as best as we can. Right. We've had those conversations of, what are the ramifications of, but we're trying to keep people in line so that, our industry gets taken seriously. Like there's the thing to know about Los Angeles is that it took forever for us to have breweries here. We are very much a historically cocktail city. San Diego has done laps and laps and laps in terms of just the longevity and establishment of craft beer there. So is the Bay Area. And LA, you know, with the exception of 2 breweries that are in their 20s, of my 95 breweries, I think 85% of them are under 3 years old. So like that's the craziest thing. And to hear that, you know, roughly 40% of them just responded to my recent poll telling me that they're not sure if they'll have the lights on in December. That's a huge loss for us here. So, you know, I think right now we're going with this plan, and then we'll just pivot and see what other straws we can grasp at next week.
Sure. And I've actually poured the Beverly Pills, and I find it to be very enjoyable. So that is available. I got this at Bottle Shop 48, which means it's other places. Bottle Shop 48 is equidistant from me from Tops, for your reference, Franny. Newer bottle shop. But have you talked to the San Diego County Brewers Guild, the Orange County? Is there some solidarity there?
Yeah. Like, so the CCBA has been really amazing at getting us on like all the regional guilds in California. We talk on a Zoom every week as well. And it's been just this crazy adventure for everyone. Everyone had their own, in the state of California, everyone had their own weird problem. Like Ventura and San Diego were up against the wineries not having to serve food at one point, but the breweries had to serve food. And they're like, what's the difference between a brewery and a winery at this point? You know? Everyone's had their weird quirk. It's just ours is the most devastating one. But there's definitely been solidarity there.
Sure. I think we heard about the wineries being able to open ahead of breweries. Is that still an issue that you need to deal with, or is this mostly just county?
County. Yeah, it's the meals thing is statewide. That's like the big thing for them. But certain counties have been a little bit more lax on the wineries. People are always having these conspiracy theories of like, oh, it's because the governor has interest in wineries. That has nothing to do with how a county works. And he's been pretty fair in terms of just, you know, the alcohol manufacturers in the state. But yeah, it's, you know, it's always an adventure to try to figure out like what the actual county orders are going to be. You know, a lot of people didn't realize that the county, if it's stricter than the state, supersedes the state order. Because you would think that like, oh, the governor's in charge of the whole state. He'll make the rules. And so we have people, you know, we had to curb people from, you know, yelling at the governor all week last week. And we're like, no, it's the supervisors that we need to convince because, you know, Mr. Newsom's just like, what do you mean? Like, I'm totally fine with the breweries working with food partners. Like, what's your deal? Like, I have a graph for you. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, California is definitely a complicated state to govern. We are the flip side. The governor is able to say during this emergency period here, this is what I think, and nothing can be more restrictive. And it's odd because businesses want sort of one set of playing rules, and they don't want to have to be at a disadvantage if they're across a county border from somebody. And so there is, you know, if I could just give the long view, there is this tension between city and state control. As breweries, we fashion ourselves as manufacturers when it's convenient, and we fashion ourselves as houses of hospitality. But I think we make good arguments, and I think that we show unity in that message as opposed to any other license holder. You know, we've talked about certain, I'm going to talk around this, certain large industries saying that they are in a very paternalistic way representative of control of the alcohol laws, and because they're willing partners, they're keeping all of us in line. And like, here's the message I have for them. Breweries are, we sell to retailers, but we're also retailers. We sell to wholesalers, but we also wholesale. And who is better to understand the nuances of it all, because we're doing it, and we also have to have good relationships. So to those other tier holders who say you must be beholden to us because we've historically had this power base and we know it's best, that has to change. And so I'll just double down on the fact that all the organizations in your neighborhood, in your city, state, apparently homeowners organization, you need to figure out how to support us, because we have huge battles. And if you think, you like some of the relaxations that have happened during COVID, and if you don't like the fact that certain license holders were held at a disadvantage, who but a Brewers Guild understands that? Because Franny's not asking for anything better than anyone else. We're just asking for rationality, and we're asking to do the work. Is that correct? We're asking to do the work.
Absolutely. We just want to be part of the gang. The 57 other counties in the state gang.
Franny, going back to the question around CCBA, have they been able to provide you with resources directly, or support, or suggestions on what to do? I know that they have a pretty strong lobbying portion of what they do, and they really focus on that. Seems like they would have some good resources. I'm not telling you what to do. I was just curious if they're able to extend some of their resources. I know that they've cut their staff pretty substantially, so they're probably stretched pretty thin.
Yeah, we work with them every week. It's been amazing how much access Tom and Leia have given me to their brains at all hours of the night, panic attacks, all of the whole 9 yards. Cannot endorse them anymore as our state, as our state body. But, at the end of the day, all that they could offer is basically the same steps that we're doing, writing the same types of letters. The relationships down here are not as solid as they are in Sacramento. And so, they feel for us. I hear from them. They give me encouraging words every week. I appreciate it all the time. But in terms of, next steps and how to go about it, our consumer campaign was what was considered, a nuclear option. It's like, the very last resort is to do a public facing situation. We waited almost 2 months before we even brought this issue to the public. We didn't pitch any media. We didn't do any of this because we were operating under the hope and good faith that the county wouldn't forget about us, right? And so, they give us as much support as they can, but this county is a lot harder to penetrate than the rest of the state, and there isn't much else to offer there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you know, also curious if, given the food mandate, because it's a little bit different than what I've seen in other states where you have to order food with alcohol, versus I think like Rob was saying in Colorado is that there has to be some food available, but you don't have to order it. Are they looking into trying to change that situation there? I was out in California a few weeks ago, and I felt like it was a big inhibitor of me visiting breweries because you're not always hungry. But you might want to go grab a beer. And if you want to go visit 2 different breweries, are you really going to have 2 lunches back to back? It was great for dinner, and but it definitely limits your ability to go visit breweries as a consumer when you're having to order a meal every single time, not even a bag of chips, but an entire meal.
Yeah. It took a lot of lobbying from the CCBA to even get the meal part attached to breweries. That was already the whole big piece. It was, if the CCBA did not advocate for us to be able to partner with food vendors to provide the meal, we wouldn't have opened in phase 2 at all. We would have been waiting along with the rest of the bar industry. And so that was already like a whole big hurdle for them. Right now, all I know is that the meal requirement won't go away until the bars and taverns can reopen. The people who can't serve the meals. And that's just, that's just the reality that we've come to accept, except in our county, where we're just like, everyone's trying to reopen for indoor dining now. So like San Diego we have a color coded tier now as of Friday, and we're in the purple tier, which is the worst one. And in the purple tier, if our county allowed for us to partner with food, we would be able to reopen for just outdoor dining. The red tier, which is one above us, which is where San Diego falls under, is actually allowed indoor dining for up to either, I think it was 25% capacity or less than 100 people, whichever is less. And so it's hilarious to me that, with all these new tiers, we have counties around us who are reopening soon for indoors, and we're still begging to be able to eat outside.
Yeah, and I just want to remind the rest of the country that it can be 100 degrees in the valley easily in LA County. I think everyone thinks because you have palm trees, it's like, it's like Hawaii or something. Well, we also have palm trees. It can be uncomfortably hot in LA County. In fact, I've never been really truly comfortable. I'm talking over you. I've never really truly been comfortable with the LA weather unless it was like literally winter. But I wanted to touch on what you had talked about. You have a purple. And I looked into that, and so that's severe or widespread. Mm-hmm. Our severe and widespread is 10%. You are at 8%. So I just want, the nuance is not lost on me. We have a governor who is, probably less willing to open indiscriminately than Georgia, and has instituted some rules, but. Purple, red, your purple is our sort of, I guess it's purple because it's not red and it's not yellow. I guess what's red and yellow? I'm not an artist. But like our critical is 10% above. LA County is, or California's 8 and above. And so your county has just said like, wow, all right, that 2% is meaningful in some way. I was like, well, yeah, they're severe, so like maybe not, but this is all squidgy territory for sure.
I would echo what Rob's saying. I think is like it's really vague and non-conforming all across the country. We don't even really look at percent of positivity rates, although we apparently have below 3% right now, which is really great. But they want to know number of cases per 100,000 people over a 2-week period. And that's how they're making a lot of their determinations. But if we didn't have restaurants open, we would be completely at a stay-at-home order. So everything would go shut down. So that's where Colorado is like, if anything's open, restaurants can be open. Otherwise, you're totally back to a stay-at-home order. So it's totally different. And we never went just outdoor. We got outdoor and indoor at the same time, which is also interesting. And I feel like that's one thing that I think frustrates some people is that the federal government is not giving many guidelines or guidances for states. And so every governor is trying to figure out this and navigate it themselves, but it really makes it so it's an uneven playing field all across the country. And even county by county, as you're experiencing, people are leaving your county to go support other businesses. And that was one of our biggest arguments, was that people are going to drink beer either way. And if you allow restaurant patios to open up, somebody's going to drink that exact beer right next door to a brewery. Why couldn't they do that on that patio? And that was one of our biggest frustrations, and really playing like you're choosing winners and losers in this battle or not in this situation.
It is tremendously frustrating when you have an organization that is willing to voluntarily comply and work with government and they're being ignored. And to your point, I mean, people do travel. Our biggest issue is people seem to want to go to northern Arizona to get a temperature decrease, and they feel like they're going to another country. But let's all remind ourselves, this is a worldwide pandemic. There is nowhere other than maybe New Zealand on Earth that you could go to that would make this work for you at all. So I just wanted to recap, because we're a little bit past the time that I've asked people to be here. If you have tuned in live, or if you're watching this as a recording, you just really got a rare glimpse into some really inside baseball discussion about the things that I'll say roundly, because there are county guilds, there are city guilds, and there are state guilds, and some have 1 or 2 players. You're looking at literally 100 people looking out for all of the craft breweries that you love, and that has an impact on. So that's 8,000 breweries, and you have how many craft beer bars that impacts. That we're trying to figure this out, and we're doing our best to make sense of it. And like I said, you had a real-time look into some of the discussion that we have, and you know, we can all talk about you know, the latest hazy and all that stuff, but this actually really fucking matters right now. And so thank you to all of our guests, and unless there's any other, well, I want to shut down Facebook Live. I see Rob Knudsen and Gary Fritzy, 2 industry people I know, are on Facebook Live, and they haven't really done anything except kind of hang out on Facebook Live. But if we don't, if we want to shut this down, Joseph, you got to run. That's great. We'll shut this down. Franny, I will send you the recording of this. So if you want to put it on your YouTube or reshare it differently, if you just share our recording of this, it's not as meaningful if you share it on your own. I'll get that to you.
Hey Rob, before we shut down Facebook Live, maybe a quick shout out for Beering, Arizona.
Sure. I'm totally Kristen, you have the shirt. You have a shirt.
Yes, I know you guys have to hear me for me to get on camera. So shirts are getting printed as we speak. I just picked up a first run.
Those look so good.
Yeah, beeringarizona.com is where you go. It is a way to support us. It is. It has a date of September 19th where we will do something online, and people, breweries will that are participating will offer you something if you buy a ticket. If you buy the commemorative cooler bag, which I will tell you is something you could throw in your car, and that's Kristen is showing the mask. I don't think.
Here we go. This is a mask.
Yeah, it's a shirt, a mask, a glass, but the bags we're getting tomorrow. If you have the bag, participating breweries will offer you some kind of discount or deal, and sometimes it's while supplies last, but it could be as long as they want to make it. And if it's a successful program, we will continue it. So if you have that bag, we want to continue that that special deal or discount as long as the brewery will honor it. And so they might say, hey, you get access to this special release, but like, let's be honest, like 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, they may not have it, but they'll probably offer you something. And so it's something that I think you should invest in. So this is to continue to further our organization. So thank you for reminding me, Bonnie, about that. I'm going to shut down the Facebook Live if that's okay. And if Ann, Shawnee, and Franny, if you want to just, and Andrew, if you want to hang out for a little bit, just to break this down and maybe follow up on something that we can. Oh, Camila, our lobbyist, she's still on. Hopefully, maybe she has something to share with our guests that won't be recorded. That'd be great.
All right, shutting it down.
Cheers, everybody.